Welcome back to my channel. We are going to be covering Paganini's Fifth Caprice. I will be taking you through a 5-day course that I created and sold previously, but now I've decided to release it for free on YouTube. On day 1, we will be covering intonation and how to navigate the different intonation systems, such as just intonation and Pythagorean intonation. On day 2, we will be covering how to play scales rapidly over the course of 4 octaves and also arpeggios. On day 3, we will be covering how to build speed and accuracy. And on day 4, we will be covering left hand secrets, especially for those of you who have small hands. And finally, on day 5, I will be taking you on a breakdown of the ricochet stroke of Paganini 5. And there will be a bonus 6th tutorial. So stay tuned for all 6 of these tutorials over the course of the next few days. Let's get right into day 1. My name is Lynn Kuo. I'm the founder of Violin with Dr. Lynn, and I'm also the assistant concertmaster of the National Ballet of Canada Orchestra. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have downloaded your free practice guide. If you haven't, you can definitely get it on my website, and it's going to be here if you don't have the practice guide already. So if you can go there, sign up, and you'll get a free 11-page guide that I wrote. You can follow along, and in it will be a lot of fun questions that you can use for your practice every single day for the 5 days. Wherever you are, I'm hoping that we can all be inspired by each other and use these 5 days to progress at your own rate. And hopefully, I think a reasonable rate is 5% improvement over 5 days. And in fact, inside the guide, you'll see that at the bottom of each page, I have a prompt asking you, what one thing can you do on each day of the challenge that will help you improve 5%. And if we can all achieve a 5% increase per day or by the end of the challenge, I think the challenge will be a complete and amazing success. Today's theme is going to basics. Now, I promised everybody that we would be covering violin techniques that can apply whether you are a novice violinist or all the way up to black belt ninja violinist. So I hope you've tuned, to a 441. But if you haven't, and you would like to join me, we're going to be just talking about some intonation things. So I'm just going to give you an A, and go ahead and feel free to tune to it. Let's get on the same page because we're going to be starting to play together. Okay, so if you're all tuned up, let's talk about intonation. Intonation is something that we have to think about for the duration of our musical careers. We can never get away from it. How I like to address intonation is what I have called the AHA strategy. AHA. The AHA strategy. A stands for audiation, meaning are we pre-hearing pitches before we play? And this is more useful for when you're doing large shifts. Like, let's say I want to shift to an A. So you're pre-hearing pitches before you shift. So we're not going to cover so much audiation today, but that is part of a great intonation strategy when you conceive of pitches before you actually get there. Now, the H stands for hygiene. Not talking about dental hygiene, but maybe during the time of a pandemic, we're also talking about hand hygiene, where you clean your hands. This is similar, hand hygiene. So we're talking about both hand hygiene as well as practice hygiene. What I mean by hand hygiene is having good left hand habits. When you form a good hand frame, you have a better chance of playing things more in tune. Okay, so that's what I mean by maintaining good hand hygiene. So I almost think of it as like washing my hands quite often during the day to make sure I have clean hands. To make sure we have good, clean intonation, I really need to think about the quality of my left hand. So in the practice guide, you will see that I have a few question prompts under the day 1 on hand hygiene. For example, often you see people with fingers that fly up into the air and then need to come back down. And the danger of that is if you start to do funny things with your hand, it's more difficult to play in tune. This is very important, hand hygiene. So I'm going to just quickly demonstrate something. So my hand frame is in one shape. So you see that, for example, my fourth finger is not below the fingerboard, or neither is it rising and facing the ceiling. What I'm trying to do is have all four fingers hovering over the strings and in a relaxed manner. And if I can maintain that through scales, through arpeggios, then I will have a better chance at having better intonation, more bulletproof intonation. Okay, so that's hand hygiene. The second part of the hygiene question is practice hygiene. And if you are a Nathan Cole fan, you're going to see this is very, very familiar. He talks about practice for performance. It's very similar. What you want to do is make sure that when you're practicing, you have good habits. The practice hygiene is good. So if you play something out of tune, quite sharp, right? What I'm doing is I'm actually not sliding around, right? I call this the no fishing rule. No fishing allowed. So we're trying to train our finger to drop cleanly. All right, so I'm trying to drop the hand in its proper height, proper frame. That's got good hygiene. But when I'm practicing, I'm making sure that I'm aware that whenever I play that, let's say the A, the fourth finger A, I'm practicing with that intent to drop it cleanly and avoid. Okay, so it's a two-part hygiene question, practicing really well and also keeping hand frame. Okay, so the third letter in the AHA strategy, I call this awareness. Now, awareness encompasses a couple of things. First of all, when we're tuning, we have open strings and we want to listen for the resonance of our instrument. When our instrument is vibrating and resonating, can you hear the resonance of my instrument after the fact? It continues that A pitch even after the bow has left the string. This is a sympathetic vibration that comes especially from the A string. So if I'm aware of that sympathetic vibration constantly while I'm practicing, then I'm already building better intonation. I'm listening for a resonance here as well. So there, I'm listening for all the time. Now, if you're a violist, of course, you'll be in D minor, and you're going to hear the D. Okay, so I would like for us to do this together, okay, as one big violin viola family. We're just going to do some warming up. What we're warming up is left hand, obviously, but also I want for us to be warming up our ears, to be opening up our ears and opening up our awareness. I often find that when I am playing out of tune personally, it's because I'm so focused on technique in the right hand. For example, if I'm trying to do I'm so focused on getting the ricochet going, for example, and we will cover that in day 5, that my intonation has suffered. So I have to go back to opening up my awareness. So if you wouldn't mind getting your instruments out, even if you are a beginner, this is going to be great. We're just going to be starting in first position, okay? So hand hygiene, first of all, let's talk about this. When we start playing the first note, which I think all of us can play really well, I'd like to ask you the first question. What does your hand look like? For example, do you have this going on? You can see my hand is spread out. If I put my fingers down in this configuration, it sounds pretty out of tune. So let's talk about hand hygiene first as we play the first note. And as you can tell, I'm fishing around, but I'm fishing around for a reason. I'm listening, I'm increasing my awareness so that I'm listening for this resonance. So go ahead and play with me. You can go ahead and match my pitch, or you may just match your own pitch, especially if you're on the viola. You're going to be a perfect fifth below. Okay, we're just going to warm up with the first 5 notes. Now remember, we can just set our own goal. 5 notes, 5 measures, 5 lines. So go ahead and play with me. We're just going to take our time. We're just doing this to open our ears, a tonalization. Next note. Next note. And then the next note. Now I'm playing with the 4th finger. You can check it with the open string. Now, if this is really easy for you, go ahead and do this in fourth position with me. Now, I'm going to check this with my open E. So here is what I call DSO, double stop opportunities. When I'm working on bulletproof intonation, on building bulletproof intonation, my intonation is not bulletproof, but I want to build it towards bulletproof status. I'm using any opportunity I can possibly find to play double stops. Double stops can be with open strings, but it's a unison, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, or an octave. So here is an example. Even if you're here, here is a unison double stop opportunity. If you're here, there's another unison. There's a unison, and then now we're building a four. So I'm listening for a perfect fourth. Okay, let's say that's too easy for you. You can go up an octave. Okay, so that's 2 octaves, a double stop opportunity. So as I mentioned, double stop opportunities can be with open strings, as I'm doing now. And what we're doing with open string double stop opportunities is listening for the absence of beats, right? We're listening for whether there's a wow, 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 wow. That's a beat, okay? When the waves, the sound waves start to intersect. When they intersect in perfect intervals, whether it's a unison or a perfect fifth or a perfect fourth or an octave. These are perfect intervals that I'm listening for absence of beats. Whoa, 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 whoa. No beats, okay? Yeah, so this is what I'm listening for. This is what we call a vertical approach to intonation. So when we're talking about building bulletproof intonation, we can talk about vertical intonation as well as horizontal intonation. This is very foundational, and believe me when I say I spend a lot of time on this caprice working on just intonation. Yes, I know we want to get to the ricochet bowing and the arpeggios. We will cover that, but this is very foundational, and I do spend a lot of time on this as well. So what I would like to just remind all of us who already know, and perhaps if you don't already know, let's review this basic thing about intonation on a string instrument. A string instrument, we will predominantly go between 2 approaches to tuning. So vertically, as I just described, using DSOs, okay, double stop opportunities. And a DSO is often using just intonation. Okay, so just intonation. It's a type of intonation system, and we are basing that on the overtone series, the harmonics. And what we're listening for, beats, as in beat on the door. So what I'm talking about is if a wave, okay, this is not a whale or a dolphin, it's a sound wave. And when they intersect each other, they're going to hit on certain nodes, okay, N-O-D-E, node. And where they beat is where we actually hear wah, wah, wah. So here's an example. This is a unison. Okay, so let's say I'm doing. Okay, let's do this one. This is a little bit out of tune. Okay, so this. Maybe I can't really hear the beats because it's too high. Let's try this one. Let's try. I'm trying to find one that has beats that you can really hear. There we go. They're about whoa, 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 whoa. Those are the beats. Okay, can you hear that? I hope you can hear that. Whoa, 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 whoa. My unison is not in tune. Now I'm just gonna do a little adjustment. Now the beats have disappeared. Let me adjust it again. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, so that's what I mean when we tune vertically. Okay, you are stacking one note on top of another, and you are listening for the absence of beats. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. What's your opinion about using a digital tuner for reference while playing? Great question. I have spent a lot of time tuning with a digital tuner, and yes, you can definitely do so. This is a tuner that Matt showed me. Tonal energy. The green in between tells me I'm out of tune. That you see the purple face? He's making a purple face because he knows I'm out of tune. Haha, very funny. So digital tuner, you can definitely use that to practice your scales. Let's say you're practicing this opening. So you can definitely set it to an A and then tuning. You can definitely do that, but know which intonation system you are using. So this is where I'm going to review back to the third letter of AHA intonation strategy, the AHA strategy. The third A stands for awareness. We are being aware of the sympathetic vibrations of our instrument, and we are also aware what intonation system we are using. So I spent a good deal of time talking about the just intonation, which is a vertical approach to tuning. However, as a string player, we also have to realize that we can switch from a vertical approach to a horizontal approach. Now, what do I mean by that? This applies to the scale coming down. So it applies to the scale coming down. What I mean is, so we are in a natural minor with a G natural coming down. Okay, so here's the question that I'm addressing right now. What's the difference between just and Pythagorean intonation? I'm telling you right now. So here we go. If I were to tune this coming down, let's say this F, I want to be very close to the E, and then let's say this C is the minor third of A minor. I want this third to really be close to the B. And then I want this G sharp is the seventh to be really tight and close to the A. Okay, this is a more horizontal approach to intonation. So I'm actually bringing this G sharp quite high. So Pythagorean intonation is constructed on perfect fifths, meaning that to find an E, it has to be in tune at a perfect fifth above the A, E. And to find a B, we match it to this E, E. That's tuned a perfect fifth above the E. So when we play this E, we match this B. That's a Pythagorean B. Okay, we are basing every pitch. This is an F sharp. We try to match this F sharp down here. This F sharp with this A is a Pythagorean tuning system. Now, if you were to approach this as in just intonation or a vertical sixth, a major sixth, it's kind of out of tune. A just intonation sixth goes down slightly, a little narrower. Yeah, I hope that's audible on my microphone. Okay, let's apply this. Let's apply this to Paganini. The first thing we're going to do in this Paganini, go ahead and tune with me if you like. We start off in arpeggio, so I would take a just intonation approach. I'm tuning double stops. The first one is a perfect fifth. The next one is a major third. So here is an example of a major third that I'm tuning using a vertical approach. Da da, stacking them on top. And that's using the just intonation system. A major third. Now, if it's out of tune, you will hear this. Whoa, 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 whoa. I hear something like that. And that's too high. Now, if you're using DSO, a double stop opportunity, this is the first double stop I would put down. Okay? Even if you're up here, you can definitely have that as a reference point as well. Okay? So for the arpeggios, put on a tuner, put on a digital tuner, and then use the just intonation system for the arpeggios. But when you come down the scale, this is where I think it's appropriate to use a Pythagorean intonation system. So it starts off with a natural minor. Now here we get to really the Pythagorean. This is a very high G sharp. This C will go down a little bit lower than a typically just intonation C would be. Now, I don't know if you can hear. You're going to hear a buzzing coming out of my instrument when it's perfectly in tune. That's called a Tartini tone. I don't know if you can hear this, but it's going to be. It's really buzzing. Okay, that proves to me that I'm playing super, super in tune in a vertical sense. Okay, now with that C, this C is quite high compared to a Pythagorean C. Slightly lower. Do you hear slight differences? It's very, very small, few cents. Now, here we're going down the scale. Now, anyone from professionals all the way down to beginners can play an A minor scale. Make sure this G sharp is nice and high. We're treating this melodically. And that F will be pulling down to the E. So the G sharp will be high, and the F will be really low. Now, this C is a minor third. Okay. Aside from the Tartini tones, what are you listening for in Pythagorean? That's a great question. I'm not as precise as a digital tuner, but this actually, you can actually calibrate to Pythagorean intonation, and it will tell you with happy faces and funny faces. It'll tell you. But what I'm listening for in Pythagorean intonation is, first of all, let's remember that all octaves and fifths and fourths are the same between just and Pythagorean. So when you play your A minor scale, the A is in unison. Let's say it's pretend it's in unison. The fifth will be identical in Pythagorean, as will the open D and the E. So those are your anchors, okay? Anything that is a fourth and a fifth will be unmovable, immovable, non-negotiable, as Nathan calls it. It's a non-negotiable. When you're asking about Pythagorean intonation, it's the third, okay, the third note of the scale, or let's say maybe the sixth, but especially the seventh note of the scale. In Pythagorean intonation, these are where it starts to move. This is what I mean by horizontally. It's like, a string of pearls, okay? Every note is a string on that pearl. What if you were able to slide that pearl along that string? This is what I mean by a horizontal approach to intonation. Your third note, if it's a minor scale, will be a little bit lower than a just intonation third. That's what I'm listening for in Pythagorean intonation. If it was a seventh, okay, a seventh is going to be quite high, leading up. It's a leading tone. It's called leading tone. So the leading tone is going to lead up to the tonic. So I'll give you a demonstration. This is a non-negotiable. This is the fourth. It must tune to open D. Now, fifth. That is a non-negotiable. I want to make sure it's in tune with the root, as well as the octave up there. So let's go up the scale. Let's do a harmonic minor. Now, this is a six, a minor six, which I kind of want to nestle really closely to the fifth. So in Pythagorean approach, I would go quite low. And now, that seventh is a G sharp. I want it to be quite high to the. That's what I'm listening for. So especially coming up here. I would want this G sharp to be quite high. And this one as well. And that one as well. I'm listening for the sevenths to be quite high and the minor thirds to be quite low. Okay? All right. Now, that is basically a run through of bulletproof intonation. So when you practice the beginning of this caprice, we're going to be mindful of sympathetic vibrations, okay, resonance. We're going to be mindful of the two approaches to intonation. There's a third one, but we're just going to concern ourselves with just intonation and Pythagorean intonation. And doing these two things, the sympathetic vibrations of your instrument and being aware of just intonation and Pythagorean intonation, is part of my AHA formula, or AHA intonation strategy. The awareness. We're building our awareness when we practice. And like I said, it's a lifetime pursuit to keep maintaining our awareness. The H, if we remember, is to maintain really good hand frame. Hand frame meaning hand hygiene. Keep your hands clean. Keep your practice routine clean. Are you fishing for notes? If you catch yourself fishing, encourage yourself to lift very cleanly and replace very cleanly. Lift and replace. You will hear Nathan Cole say that a lot. And as I think many of you know, I happen to be one of Nathan Cole's students, and he's a fabulous, fabulous coach. I've learned so much from him. As you can see, it was quite manageable today, right? All I did was talk about intonation. You don't have to go crazy and learn the ricochet bowing or the practice 4-octave arpeggios. You just don't need to do that. What we're doing is improving 5%. Wait, 5%, not 10, 5%. Just for 5%, I would probably just take one scale and see if I can improve it 5%. I think that's doable. And I think we can all cheer each other on and do so in the Facebook group. And I think that's also doable if you do it even publicly on your social media. Say, you know what, I'm going to improve 5% on this one thing, whether it's my Pythagorean scale or my double stop opportunities. I'm just going to listen for no beats on a fifth, a unison, or an octave. Does that sound good? I hope it does. Sometimes when I check with octaves or fourths, my hand shape changes. It means I should follow the latter one, right? That's a really good question. You know, quick answer to your question. I would, whenever you are changing hand shape, it's often, especially for people with small hands, we will talk about more on left hand secrets for small hands in day 4. I think it's day 4. What you're going to try to do is aim for the higher finger. Well, the higher fingers are 3 and 4, right? You want your hand shape to be comfy, really comfy for the higher fingers, and then see what happens with your hand shape. See if you can manage all 4 or octave, 4th, 5th octaves. See if you can make your pinky the most comfortable and see how that stabilizes and makes your hand frame more consistent, okay? Thank you so much, everybody. That was really, really fun. I really look forward to seeing you in the Facebook group. And tomorrow we'll be covering deeper into arpeggios, scales, and shifts. Today was all about opening our ears. Go ahead and do that. And I look forward to seeing you all in the Facebook group. Take care, everybody. Say hi to me in the group, okay? Bye.